Bonk, Brink of Extinction was the follow-up to Hudson's PC Engine mascot platformer series. While titles would be released on the Super Nintendo and the Game Boy, along with some mobile titles, the PC Engine was truly the series' home. Our main character is a friendly caveman with a super hard head, thus, Bonk! That large head of his is the ultimate weapon, killing prehistoric creatures of all kind with just a bonk or two. Pi Studios, a Texas-based studio, worked with Red Entertainment and Hudson Soft to start creating this brand new sequel, which was first announced on September 1st, 2009. The game was planned for the Wii, the Xbox 360, and the PlayStation 3 platforms, all as a digital title only. On the Xbox, the title would be just 800 Microsoft points, giving some idea of the pricing that Pi Studios was aiming for. The game was originally planned for an early 2010 release before being pushed back to late 2010 and ultimately canceled. But before this, a Bonk revival started on the Wii, kind of. The Wii's Virtual Console brought new attention to the old series in 2006, with many people having never seen a TurboGrafx or PC Engine, let alone played Bonk. Sales were, almost surprisingly, really good. That started the wheels turning over at Hudson. Hudson also saw the success of Bomberman Live on the Xbox 360 and were eager to develop more titles on the new generation of consoles. Internally, a prototype pitch was being developed by the US branch of Hudson. Approval had to come from Hudson Japan, though. This 2007 video was labeled as a conceptual animation, aiming to show what the game could play like, rather than an actual playable prototype in the traditional sense that I normally cover here. This video was built in Maya and showed what Bonk would look like in a more 3D world. The initial pitch was for a full console experience and a DS version, but Hudson would only greenlight the title for downloadable platforms. Following the green light, the game slowly started to take shape as design documents were drawn up and the scenario created. The earliest documents labeled the game as Bonk's Extinction, but it quickly transitioned into being Bonk, Brink of Extinction. The design documents talk about how the main driving factor of the game would be a gigantic comet, which was on a collision course with Earth, thus, the Brink of Extinction. While the small group that created the pitch wanted to create the game internally at the US Hudson branch, Hudson Japan wasn't quite willing to take that chance. Pi Studios was brought on board, with just 3 members of the Hudson US team working closely with the studio. As mentioned earlier, Bonk Brink of Extinction was announced on September 1st, 2009 as a WiiWare, 360 Live Arcade, and PlayStation Network downloadable title. This particular build that you can see now seems to have been built around E3 2010, give or take, but unfortunately it's incomplete. While the final game would feature 3 worlds, this build returns to the title screen after completing one of the early World 3 levels. Apart from some bugs and a lack of polish on the boss fights, the game was in really good shape. I've been able to play to the breaking point multiple times with minimal issues. I'm not sure if this level is a set breaking point to stop the press from advancing any further, or if the game simply lacks the rest of the content, but it's something I'll work on occasionally, at least until I can find a more complete build. Like many publishers at the time, Hudson seemed unwilling to consider a release on Steam or other PC platforms. This seems to be about the norm for this time period, as it really hasn't been until the past couple of years that Japanese developers have started to see how great Steam can be. I have word though that an unofficial PC build was functioning inside of the studio, something I know I would love to see. The gameplay for Brink of Extinction should be familiar to classic Bonk fans. All of the headbutting and gliding action would be back, with the addition of some new transformations that add some new layers to the gameplay. Ice Age Bonk allowed Bonk to freeze enemies and use them as platforms. Devil Bonk allows Bonk to spit fireballs. Rhino Bonk allowed Bonk to run straight through obstacles and enemies. Micro Bonk shrinks him down. Soapy Bonk allows Bonk to encase enemies in a bubble which floats upwards, acting as a moving platform. And lastly, Hip Hop Bonk, which seems to start a bit of a dance party. The primordial Jello gauge gives Bonk 90 seconds of transformation time, which can be restored by picking up more Jello. Fruits and vegetables are also scattered throughout the levels, which increase the points and point bonuses, but they do not restore Bonk's health. Co-op play would have allowed multiple people to take part, using a jump-in system. While the game would have been completable by just one player, there were hidden areas that are only accessible only with the additional player. Unfortunately, I don't really have anybody to play with other than my wife, and she's just not that good, so I haven't found any of these hidden areas quite yet. Enemies, both new and old, want to stop Bonk. The pterodactyl flies around, bombing Bonk. The digesters have gigantic jaws. Beware of raptor soldiers who can at times wear spiky helmets. Larger vehicles like the raptor unicycle tank serve as a small boss-like enemy, taking a little bit of extra effort to take down. Plus some other enemies like these. And of course some proper bosses at the end of every world. Colonel Clinker is the boss of World 1, and it just so happens that he is a giant raptor who can be hurt by throwing fish at him. Yeah. King Drool, who is the main boss of the first Bonk game, makes his return as the second world boss. This level is pretty unique because it takes place on a circular level with platforms that are slowly being destroyed by King Drool. The third boss, and the one I haven't seen yet outside of screenshots, takes place at the center of the Earth. The boss is apparently a big robot and some nice hot magma. It is a vertical battle with the magma being just as dangerous as the boss itself. The design document says that to begin with, the player must deal with a small creature that jumps around taunting him, moving between platforms and jumping into and out of the lava. I believe this is what you're seeing here. Before long, it becomes apparent that this creature is tethered to something else that is still under the lava. The creature hops between platforms, sometimes jumping into the lava and threatening to splash Bonk. Bonk must get close to it and hit it with its headbutt. When he's done enough damage to the creature, it starts smoking and jumps into the lava one last time, doing a pool bomb in the process. This, I think, shows some very nice variation in the bosses and really helps to mix up the gameplay. Unlike some of the classic titles that move from one level to the next, Bonk Brink of Extinction does have a world map. Unlocking new powers would allow the player to revisit levels and find new things, whether it's just a few additional smileys or extra letters for the scribble game. These hidden areas can be found in the very first level, showing just how many areas were hidden throughout the game. Speaking of the scribble game, Bonk is able to collect letters that can unlock all sorts of bonuses. There is a plan to reveal some scribble words through the Hudson website. I haven't quite gotten enough letters to unlock all of these, so these come directly from the design document for the game. Words like bonk might give it an extra life, although Comet would delete one life. Hip Hop could unlock the Hip Hop transformation, while other words like volcano, extinct, Hudson, and perhaps Airzonk may have unlocked even more content. Since I am unable to complete the last world, I'm not exactly sure how the game ends. According to the design doc, there could have been 3 different ending sequences, following an elevator stage, of course. The perfect ending would have the planet sustaining no damage from the comet impacts, with dinosaurs, waterfalls, and snow-capped mountains described in the doc as a utopia. The moderate ending has moderate damage, but the planet has hope for its survival. And the devastated planet shows a planet not suitable for life, with huge smoldering craters, dried-up rivers, and blowing dust across the landscape. A barely recognizable moon could be seen in the background. 3 downloadable content packs were being created for Bonk. The first, a dactyl mode, added an additional story mode to the game. I do have access to an early version of this DLC, but it, like the main game, ends prematurely. While Bonk was out gathering berries, a giant pterodactyl swoops in and steals the basket. Without the food, no dessert for Bonk and his friends. This mode starts Bonk with all of the power-ups, and the levels are noticeably more difficult than the early levels of the main story mode. The end boss was to be a giant pterodactyl. The design document notes that, ultimately, Bonk will find that the pterodactyl is just looking out for its family, so Bonk brings the entire family some delicious pies. Everybody wins. The Monkey Shines mode DLC puts 2 players in a head-to-head competition to score better than the other player in multiple timed rounds. Arena levels were designed for this mode, with platforms, obstacles, and of course, monkeys! The player must tag more monkeys than the other, all while avoiding the angry monkeys. This mode is a sort of reimagining of the old Odyssey 2 title, Monkey Shines, which is a bit fitting since I just started to collect for the Odyssey 2. The Horde mode DLC again takes place in an arena. This time, Bonk is on one end of the level, and as you might expect by the name, enemies appear which Bonk must defeat. Bonus levels are scattered throughout the main game. They are unlocked by using the smileys that the player collected. Inside of the bonus level, you can usually find some extra scribble letters and an extra life, plus some bonus fruit. Documents also talk about a faithful sidekick named Zog the Cave Dog. I'm not sure if he was cut from the game or if I just hadn't found him or otherwise gotten to him, but he had the ability to sniff out secret and bonus areas along with a new skateboarding mechanic. It's a bit out there, but it could have worked. Following the tragic earthquake and tsunami in Japan on March 11, 2011, Bonk Brink of Extinction went extinct itself, with Hudson canceling its release. Insiders from the studios point to larger issues being at play here, though. Hudson Japan involved themselves in the project, changing the executive structure and damaging Pi Studios' culture. When it began to take too long to gain approval, money was withheld, not unlike other studios around this time period, including Free Radical Design and their work on Star Wars Battlefront 3. Work began to grind to a halt, and Pi Studios simply could not survive, ending Bonk's revival. In addition, Hudson Japan's QA department had a strange rule. They had to go through 3 days of playtesting without finding any bugs for the game to be successfully passed. In practice, this meant they were trying to release products without any bugs. Obviously, this isn't something that most developers are used to. There comes a point in development where it's inevitable that there will be bugs in a game, and that, quite frankly, some of them aren't worth fixing. It's just simply not worth the money. And yet, Hudson Japan insisted that every game goes through these days of testing. Any bugs, it's back to the drawing board. On a more positive note, if you liked any of the music in the game, you're in luck. 2 of the artists on the game, Rich Vreeland and Filippo Beck-Picaz, I apologize for the name if I messed that up, have made their work on the game available for everyone. I'll add some links in the description. Download them, toss them a few bucks, and enjoy. If you'd like to see some more gameplay footage, consider supporting P2P Online on Patreon at patreon.com/P2P Online. I'll be uploading extended gameplay clips for Patreon supporters. Our newest Patreon supporter is Simon, who has pledged to help support my game preservation efforts. Thanks, Simon. One last order of business before we wrap up the video. As I mentioned towards the beginning of the video, the initial pitch included work on a DS version of the game. While it wasn't approved, documents and some concepts were drawn up, and in the future I hope to be able to share some more of these with you. But this does wrap up this video on Bonk Brink of Extinction. I have a feeling that this won't be the only video I make on the game, especially knowing that more content is out there waiting to be found. Hit that subscribe button and do consider checking us out on Patreon. Thank you for watching.